Hi and welcome to Indigo Starfire. My name is Bevin, and in this video I'm going to be looking into the question, then versus now. How have their feelings about you and the connection changed? There are 3 groups to choose from. Group 1 is the Fossilized Coral Star. Group 2 is the Auralite 23 Point. And group 3 is the Rhodochrosite Heart. So if you want to take a moment to center, focus on your breathing, and feel whichever group, maybe multiple groups or perhaps all of the groups that you're most drawn to. I'll give you a minute to make your selection and then we'll get right into it. And there are timestamps in the description box of the video for each group if you would like to jump ahead. And up next is a close-up photo of the crystals to help you better make your selection. Hi, Group 1. You chose the Fossilized Coral Star. So I'm just going to be using oracle cards for this reading, and let's start by taking a look at then. What were their feelings for you like, either in the case of a no contact situation, somebody that you're in separation from at that point of departure, or the idea of then can also apply to somebody that you are still currently seeing, and this can relate to sort of the early phases of your connection, and then we'll compare that to how things have evolved. So just whatever resonates for your particular situation. Okay, so we have potential, forgiveness, purification, fairies, earth magic, rainbow, blessings, and childhood, innocence. So there's definitely a sense here of that early on in the connection, or if this is somebody that you're in no contact with at the point where you parted ways, they sense that there was a lot of potential for growth in the situation, but this is also somebody who was focused extremely on the challenges in this circumstance. So this can relate to things like physical distance being a challenge between the two of you, literal or metaphorical mountains that would have needed to be climbed in order to carry the connection to the next point, or as they were starting to get to know you, if it's somebody even that you're currently dealing with, or this can apply to a no contact situation, that there were almost something that they might have perceived as kind of red flags, although it almost feels to trigger deeply within, kind of like childhood wounding here with the childhood and innocence, things that may have kind of reminded them of a love gone sour from the past, and conversely from that also the idea of an opportunity to really sort of rewrite the script and rewrite the narrative as far as love and partnerships are concerned, if the two of you were able to sort of bypass or overcome these challenges. This can talk about different beliefs, different sort of life experiences, different goals, views, ways of looking at the world, upbringing, different circumstances in both of your lives. Again, like material aspects, material, distance, geographic distance. That was kind of a challenge that was definitely almost like an elephant in the room. It was a big factor that it feels like kept this person early on in the connection from truly exposing the deep chemistry that they felt for you, the deep attraction that they felt for you. It may have kept them sort of emotionally distant from you, sort of a bit standoffish, perhaps even kind of friend zoning you with the childhood, playing a little bit of games, a little bit of mischief here with the idea of childhood and fairies, kind of saying certain things, baiting questions, or sort of leading you down these trails to sort of try almost to deliberately trigger you to see, is this juice going to be worth the squeeze? Should I continue to invest in developing this situation, or is it something that there's just going to be too much kind of chaos and upheaval in order to continue this forward? They may have also, in a sense here, it's bringing to mind the idea of they saw you as a very whimsical person, and this could have gone almost in a way where it was very appealing to them at first. They may have seen you as somebody who was very romantic, kind of 10 of Cups energy with the idea of rainbow and blessings, a way of looking at the world that was very poetic, maybe even kind of the language that you used as far as describing your feelings, even if it was just an openness in talking about your feelings. It's something that it feels like really drew this person in, but at a certain point in time, it started to trigger kind of like a fear of intimacy, a fear of vulnerability, some way in which they have been locked away from a level of their own feelings to where they almost then misconstrued or started to kind of shift or twist this open energy. It's very flowing and loving and receptive energy on your part into something as kind of like naivete almost, or something where they may have seen that you weren't necessarily, or thought that you weren't necessarily a very practical and grounded person. This could have represented also sort of the challenge. There was a lot of potential in the circumstance, but it's something where it almost feels that they needed to kind of put on the brakes, or it might have caused them to sort of move away from this connection to a certain extent, because almost against their better judgment, against this kind of compulsion that they had towards you, this draw that they had towards you, there was a part of them that said, how could somebody that looks at the world like this, or sort of holds himself, even if you're very compassionate about yourself, kind of talking about your upbringing, talking about difficulties, challenges that you've faced, that you've overcome, or maybe had still been in the midst of, and that you almost had this optimism or this trust almost in the universal forces and kind of the larger plan that everything would work out for your highest good. And it feels to be something that was very perplexing for them, very intriguing for them, and at the same time, at a certain point, it almost feels that it caused them to kind of recoil or to question, because it mirrored in some way an area of lack within themselves, ways in which they have had a hard time forgiving themselves, forgiving others, maybe even that they've been kind of taking sort of a woe is me attitude to circumstances that have happened in their life. Different things where they could have felt, well, the universe is against me, the deck is stacked against me, I'm not lucky in love, I'm not lucky in life. A little bit of jealousy and envy kind of coming up here as well. Not necessarily about what you have, but who you are at an emotional level, at a core level. That this was something that was very intriguing for them, very enticing, but at a certain point, it kind of folded over into a shadowy sort of energy, which may have led to a rut you currently find yourself in, if this is somebody you're presently dealing with, or this may have been a contributing factor that caused them to run or detach from the situation because they were being confronted with something that was kind of a deficit within, an area within that they had sort of tucked into the shadow, rather than kind of standing in the light and the truth of, feelings of vulnerability, feelings of almost like a disconnect from their own emotional body in a certain way, that you highlighted or demonstrated sort of another way to move through the world. They also saw you kind of earlier on in the connection, or when you were last dealing with them, as a light in the darkness. It feels like for a lot of people, this could have also sparked a degree of jealousy and envy in them. It almost feels that they saw you as somebody who was like a moth or a flame, and they were kind of like the moth to your flame. But then at a certain point, they may have noticed that you had this very magnetic personality. Even if it's something where you were very humble, it's this light that you exuded within, that it feels like the more that they kind of got to know you, or that they were just sort of sensing that this was something that was cultivated within you. A lot of it was innate, but that had been cultivated through challenges, through kind of releasing burdens within yourself, or that you were in a stage of your life of kind of overcoming some things, turning a new leaf, moving in a new direction, into a new chapter. And while that act may have caused you to intersect with this person, or they may have sort of seen that taking place in various ways, and to a certain extent it was kind of leading them along that path, being very enthusiastic about that, very supportive of that, very inspired. It feels like at a certain point in the past that it hit a wall with this person. It triggered something deeply within, some deeply embedded shadow, that of kind of with the idea of purification and sort of, these tears that sort of, the idea of like rain dampening the sunshine. It was almost a sense of kind of your emotional openness or the work you'd done to heal, or just this light that you were exuding, this invitation to kind of heal themselves by stepping out of a way of looking at the world, or stepping out of some degree of shadow, or even things that you had kind of revealed to them that was an invitation for them to open up and be more vulnerable about kind of what makes them tick, what their backstory was, what their history was, their life experience that had sort of led them to the particular manifestation of how they were moving through the world, that this is something that they felt very confronted by in a certain extent, almost like, I have been in denial about these things within myself for so long. You're not necessarily putting the pressure on to reveal anything, but leading by example of another way of moving through difficulty and challenge. And while it was something that they were really beckoned toward, it reached a point where it required them taking a leap of faith, moving in a direction more of light and levity rather than sort of like heaviness and obscuring things into the darkness. And so it feels to be a crossroads point that they're either presently stuck at in your connection, or if this is something that caused them to kind of pull away or break away, or even just create a little bit of energetic static or distance between the two of you. In a certain extent, they're still at that crossroads period. Especially this applies if it's a situation where it's no contact and you've both sort of moved on with your lives in different directions, or it's kind of in this weird holding pattern. They're still stuck at that crossroads point. They have not been able to sort of shake whatever that is that has been triggered, something deep within their emotional self, something from childhood, something about the way that they've been not just viewing love and partnerships, but more importantly kind of viewing themselves and events in their life that have kind of led to the present circumstances they find themselves in. So they're still very much affected by you. You still energetically, whether you're dealing with this person currently or there's distance between the two of you, you represent that light in the darkness, kind of you just doing your thing, living your life is really beckoning them to, the possibility to make a different choice of how they've been moving through the world. But they feel very much, in terms of this past energy, the energy of then, it was definitely something which presented as kind of a roadblock for them. Which may have caused, the necessity to sort of build in other directions, or a pause between the two of you, or again, like total disconnect. So let's shift gears and see how in any way have their thoughts and feelings about you, their impression of you and the connection, how has this changed in kind of real time today, in this moment, whenever you're watching this video, or, are they still kind of in this energy of feeling very drawn to you, very much like the moth to the flame, but not fully allowing themselves to kind of release some sort of a block within themselves that would allow them to not just chase your vibration, but really bring that light out from inside. It's the idea of like bringing that light within out to play with the light within you, and in sort of this very fresh and kind of innocent energy. Are they any closer to doing that? Or are they still at this period of kind of running from themselves and sort of what you exemplify to them? So we have observer, orphaned, no place like home, discernment, your time to shine, and meaningful sacrifice. So your time to shine is definitely indicating that they still see you as that light in the darkness. If it's somebody you're currently in a connection with, you're currently dealing with, they are still very much following your light, kind of watching you move through the world, but there's an energy of being sort of standoffish. They don't fully trust in their feelings and the stirring within their heart, in this invitation to kind of jump into this with you more fully, or jump into the game of life in a different way in which they've been moving through the world. Maybe their whole life, maybe since childhood, maybe since a serious breakup or something that really hit them very deeply emotionally speaking, that it's almost just kind of like they buried it and pressed on forward. And so there's something about the connection with you, even in sort of the, kind of basic friendship level of what the two of you might have started off building as, to where there has been this sort of invitation to let go of some of that hurt, let go of some of the grievances of the past, and move forward, using the wounds, using the perceived failures as wisdom to be more discerning, but not to close off. You are that living example of the crystallization of wisdom into a tool of personal empowerment rather than a prison, which keeps one at a distance, from experiencing closeness with others, like with this little house on the shepherd's crook here. They are operating, it feels like, in a very different vibration. They're still very much disconnected from self in a lot of ways, disconnected from these wounds, not wanting to look and address at these inner child wounds that have been triggered, kind of holding that at arm's length, looking at it in a very skeptical way from afar. And in some way this is associated, maybe not consciously, but just energetically, with you and with the connection. So it's a sense of almost kind of, especially if it's somebody you're in no contact with, there is a lot of kind of a self-defeating attitude here with the orphaned card and the meaningful sacrifice, almost like, well, this is a challenge that I couldn't overcome. This had so much potential. We could have been so good together, but I feel very defeated at this particular point in time. So I'm just gonna, I guess, have to watch this person move on in their life. They can't take their eyes off you, literally, energetically speaking. They can't stop thinking about the memory, about the idea of what would have happened if I had taken a chance? What would have happened if I would have let this person in closer? What would have happened if I had gotten out of my own way and moved with the force of belief rather than skepticism? Where would we be in the situation right now? Where would I be personally, in terms of they're still sitting with this void inside? They're still stuck at that crossroads point. They, in a lot of ways, even if they've moved on into other connections, or they're like dating other people, there's a part of them that is still just very frozen in time at this choice point, at this opportunity that they had to allow a different and deeply embedded version of them to move forth more dominantly into how they are presenting themselves to the world. Almost the idea of kind of an openness to love, as if one had never been hurt in the aftermath of maybe a reoccurring series of disappointments. So it's leap of faith energy. You very much still represent that inspiration to them, but they don't necessarily feel at the point, whether it's currently someone you're dealing with or someone you're in separation from taking any sort of action steps in another direction. They're almost feeling that it's kind of, especially if it's somebody also that you're still dealing with, there's almost a sense of like, this is a huge challenge. They almost seem to maybe be trying to work around that, trying to, see if the two of you can build in another capacity, trying to ignore this, but it's a very big factor. It's like it's a mountain looming in the background, that even if you sort of, build something with one another in these other directions, there's still going to be this aspect of something which has been triggered deeply within them, which they are needing to address. They are needing to elevate beyond. It's a sense of, we can continue to have a good time with one another, but I don't know how far this can really go. I don't know if we can make it to that kind of home base with one another. I don't know if this is a connection where, we are in sync enough, mostly in terms of what they themselves are willing to allow themselves to kind of release of their past, ways in which they are allowing themselves to be seen in a vulnerable state, which you inspire them to do. There's a questioning as far as, at a certain point in time, is what they feel comfortable offering, is this going to be enough to sustain and to build, like a 10 of Pentacles energy? It's almost, and this isn't a forever and ever, it's just sort of where they're at right now, is they're at this crossroads point. choosing their next direction. Even not making a choice is a choice, just standing very much still and in place at this period in time. It's a sense of, we could build that 10 of Pentacles, but it's going to take time. It's going to be a stretch at this point. So something else that really needs to kind of change within them, almost an understanding as well that they may end up having to lose you, lose this connection, lose some of that spark, lose some of that chemistry. It may really take you sort of setting your sights elsewhere, or there's almost this kind of feeling or a fear of maybe you will need to disconnect before they're able to truly appreciate and realize what it is that's sort of moving away from them, what they've lost. Not that they're valuing you once you're gone, but they're almost kind of, it feels to be something that may light a fire within them to sort of get out of their own way. It feels to be something as well with this kind of, this figure just sort of sitting up on this pillar, an orphan, that this is sort of whatever this kind of block is, whatever that has been triggered, through just something vibrationally, through how you move through the world, through how you've adapted and kind of changed and persevered and thrived despite the challenges that you faced in your life in a variety of ways. They've just remained very stuck in place. There's a lot of deeply embedded, deeply rooted pain that kind of the years have stacked up, experiences have stacked up. It's a sense of fear almost of sort of the work that they need to do internally, or things they may need to kind of clear out of their life, or that they've been really clinging to in terms of belief systems, mindset, or even just a comfortable pain within. That it's a feeling of, this is not going to be an overnight fix. It's a sense of not really knowing how to start. It's a sense of, they may have even just become so comfortable in a sense of void within that, as much as it hurts, as much as it's lonely, it's all they know. And so it feels like a huge leap of faith to really sort of address this and try to find a way over it, try to find a way to kind of move this mountain right here. That it's something which, this almost feels like a familiar pattern for them as well. Something that in at least one other connection, they've hit this roadblock with somebody, and that's kind of been game over in the situation. It hasn't been able to develop substantially beyond that point, and there's a fear of this just being another kind of disappointment to add to the stack. It's another pebble on this mountain here. It's another kind of area within themselves that they'll look back and say, I wish I had been braver. I wish I had done something different. I wish that this weren't such a factor or a hindrance for me, and life could be so different. So, you really are representing a light in the darkness for them. Even if they're not in contact with you, they still see this to a certain extent. They may be watching you from afar, watching you kind of move forward, watching some sort of glow up, maybe even with the disappointment of them not participating or pulling back or running from you, ways in which you've kind of picked up your pieces, you've rebuilt, you've processed that pain and loss, and you've carried on. You're being this living example to them right now in real time, how to do that. You might not be giving all the details, but they're watching energetically. And, if you've taken time to yourself, you've drawn the shades and sort of retreated, you've made yourself a little bit inaccessible, and maybe you're coming back out again for the first time in a while. They're seeing all of this. They're taking note of all of this as sort of like, okay, this is how you engage in the process of personal alchemy, knowing full well that, definitely there was kind of a breaking point or a point of disappointment, or something that had really culminated that sort of stopped kind of the momentum between the two of you to a certain extent. And so what they're observing in the aftermath of that in a certain way is very educational for them, as far as steps that, if they get out of this energy of like a pity party with themselves, if they choose to continue to follow that light and kind of move out of the shadowy energy within and really address these kind of wounds and bring them into a place of acceptance and forgiveness of self, then it's almost the idea of following sort of the path that you're scripting or demonstrating at this particular point in time as a way to kind of liberate themselves from this hindrance between the two of you, something that has been a factor in their life for a while. So they see you as an inspiration. They see you as somebody as well that, even if this is just sort of if you're dealing with them still, if you're in a connection with them still, and something has just changed energetically speaking, they may see that you're not quite as open, as they had originally thought. If they thought that you were kind of overly romantic, you were overly whimsical, you weren't necessarily grounded, it's some element of kind of they've dug in their heels and you've pulled back your energy. They're seeing you in a different way, that you're not afraid to detach from anything that is not in accordance with kind of, your highest good, that isn't participating with you, that isn't growing, that isn't evolving, that is creating unnecessary, kind of like chaos or stress in your life, that you are demonstrating self-love in such a manner that even if it means you have to gather your energy, you have to gather up your time or your attention and redirect that elsewhere, redirect that in self, you're willing to do that. So this difficulty actually is helping to give them some food for thought, to both see you in a different manner, see you in action, see you actively in the process of alchemizing disappointment, pain, or frustration into a source of personal empowerment, to where it's very personally inspiring to them. And it's also sort of, it's giving them, it feels like a lot more respect as far as who you are as a person, this inner strength that you have, that you might be, presenting or showing as a very sort of loving, optimistic, bubbly person even, but inside you're a diamond, and you've become that way through a lot that you've overcome, things that they have no idea about. This is just kind of another pebble on the mountain, whatever you're dealing with this individual right now, or whatever they put you through, to where it's almost as a living example. They're seeing this, they're understanding that, they're able to kind of fathom even more what you must have been through, what it must have taken to kind of reach this place. It gives them a sense of admiration, but also kind of reinforces and triggers that feeling of lack within. If you can sort of adapt and rise again after so much disappointment in your life, and still, look at the world with a smile on your face, still be open to love, still have healthy boundaries, and not just be totally shut down and have a heart that is turned to stone. If you can do that, then certainly they could do that, then anyone could do that. But it's really highlighting kind of all the work that they haven't done, ways in which they've kind of chosen the path of just closing off, of just sort of dragging this weight along with them. So they don't feel necessarily presently inspired to do much as far as mending the situation in a way, or reinforcing or giving you a sense of security in that they are really invested in this in the long term. They're kind of watching you move, and it's helping them to gauge steps that they need to take in order to be able to reach you at a level where what you're offering, they are able to receive that and reciprocate that in kind. They're now understanding that your paths have diverged. You're continuing to elevate in your vibration. You're showing and demonstrating more of the fullness and luminosity that you hold within. And they are kind of sitting there sort of looking at the shadows within themselves and saying, what do I do with all of this? It's an understanding that they need to sort of reconcile that somehow within themselves in order to be able to kind of continue forth with you on into the future, or that they need to deal with this within themselves in order to be able to return to your life again. So I'm going to get some messages from their higher self and see what they want to tell you right now. And they say, you are my everything. So you are everything that they would like to be, ideally speaking, as far as owning your shadow, owning the hurt, the disappointment, the heartbreak that you've been through, and choosing to continue to love again, choosing to continue to look at the world with an openness, not a naivete, but discernment, self-love, but at the same time, a willingness to continue to, put your heart out there despite the risk of it being hurt again, despite how many times you've been hurt, you keep getting back up and exuding this very loving energy. They also say you are my treasure. So that's tying to the idea of they are now presently recognizing this diamond of strength that you are within, that you are at a core level, that you are as a soul, which could be very different from the initial impression they had of you. Somebody who was soft, somebody who was a pushover, somebody who was all gooey in the center. They may have really taken your kindness for weakness, or had seen sort of the compassion with which you spoke of others, and which you really honored yourself as kind of a sign of weakness almost. This is somebody who, for in a major way, equates emotions and vulnerability with weakness within. And it feels to be because it's an underdeveloped aspect of themselves. They've not looked at their own sort of flaws on an emotional level very acutely. They've not looked at sort of the wounds within from a state of compassion. They just sort of shut the pain away and relegate it to a place of the shadows. So what they are identifying as sort of weakness or undesirable qualities, it's really just kind of unaddressed pain within themselves. And they also say, I find everything about you so pleasurable and irresistible. So again, as much as they are deeply triggered by you, by the way you view love, you are love, you are walking love itself. You are the embodiment of love in kind of an idealized and yet well-rounded way. Love of self and the ability to still exude that to others. They're very much drawn to this energy, but there's very much a fear of kind of, if you're the flame and they're the moth and they're pulled in closer, there's always the chance that they could get burned. It ties into kind of this defeatist attitude, something that very, very presently, and kind of it's carried over. It's like they're still, again, just sort of stuck at a crossroads point. You triggered something in the past. They haven't moved beyond that currently. They're just sort of watching you move about, feeling a distance grow between the two of you, maybe watching you set your sights elsewhere. They can't take their eyes off you. They can't help but be magnetized in. But at the same time, they're very fearful of fully succumbing to you, fully succumbing to this connection, looking deeply within at what has been triggered, these fears or these lack within themselves, this hurt, this unhealed pain within themselves. And there's a fear of kind of letting that go because it's been their companion for so long. And yet the more they're kind of drawn towards you and their attention is on you, the more that they are seeing that in order to have something more in this situation, or more importantly, to have something more for themselves, is kind of like a big takeaway from this situation, is a big lesson. In order to move toward personal happiness and healing, they need to really get out of their own way. And they are seeing you in a very subtle and also direct manner as somebody who has the ability to teach them how to do that through your living example. They also say, I wasn't looking for this. I don't know how to deal with this. So they definitely were not planning on being so deeply triggered. When they first met you, they may have just seen you as somebody that, again, was very pleasing on the surface level, easy to talk to, a very easygoing person, something that could have just been really casual, there for a good time, not really there to get in deep or, deal with any of kind of these huge emotional issues. It's way outside of their comfort zone, and yet you just being you in a very authentic and natural way has really pulled something up from the depth of them, which is why they're still stuck at this crossroads point. They don't know how to let go of a version of themselves, a wounded them, in order to move forward into their life, either with you or in some other direction, that might become available to them further down the road. And they also say, I didn't fall in love with you because I have always loved you and always will. So you, again, are this embodiment of kind of the best version of themselves. Not that you are without flaws, but you are definitely in certain ways, in significant and even subtle ways, you are the representation of what they could attain within themselves emotionally and vibrationally if they would disconnect with what no longer serves them, which is kind of this stale pain that they are holding within, this view and sort of attitude on love, on feelings. Definitely is somebody that, again, kind of has this attitude, the deck stacked against them, they're unlucky, things don't work out in their favor, they may be somebody who really blames others for problems or circumstances that have occurred, rather than seeing themselves as the common denominator and doing something to fix themselves in order to change the results of what is happening with other people. And it's something to where you represent kind of the ability to do that, to sort of shift a perspective in a way, shift an approach to situations, and they may have almost kind of, it's tying in with the idea of that they had seen you initially as kind of soft or whimsical or, ungrounded, kind of airy-fairy energy and just, kind of unreliable. A sense that they may have just equated you with almost being a doormat because certain things that you had spoken about or even certain ways in which you dealt with them on a compassionate level was so unlike what they were accustomed to, or they just equated that with, again, the sign of like vulnerability and weakness, rather than seeing that you actually are stronger because you freed yourself from a lot of resentment, all this baggage that is, in a way, this person continues to carry around, all the hurts, all the feelings of being slighted, being overlooked, the world's against me, everything just kind of falls apart or turns out the same. That's a heaviness. That's a huge burden to bear. That keeps them weak. You were willing to release these things, willing to sort of, step forth with kind of this beginner's mind, no matter how many times you've fallen down. They're now seeing this as that is the true mark of strength, not how much pain, disappointment you can bear, but how much kind of inner resolve you can have to let that go. And so it's something where they're really striving for that, they're yearning for that, they want that, but they don't necessarily know how to move to that place within themselves. They're scared to do that. And they also say, you're not my usual type, but I like it a lot. So again, something about the way you look at the world, something about the way you, view yourself in relation to your past, in relation to things that you've been through, your light, your spunk, your optimism, your sparkly personality, just whatever that looks like, your willingness to give to others, to be a shoulder to cry on, your empathy, your light itself. It feels like it's so different from the usual type of person that they magnetize in. They almost feel to be somebody with such a degree of pessimism or gloominess that they just bring other gloomy people into their life for the most part. Other people that kind of operate at that like frequency, that feel very defeated by the world, that think everybody's out to get them. It's everybody else's fault. Have very defeatist attitudes, or are just very limited or linear in what they feel they are capable of. They dream small and therefore they achieve small. You, on the other hand, or somebody who, you see potential, and instead of just kind of moving in this energy of, well, this is raw potential and I just set myself up for disappointment again and again, you're actively kind of learning and restructuring yourself. And again, through every time you're kind of knocked down and you get back up, you're coming back stronger, brighter. Your light is even more bright after every time you've been kind of cast into the darkness. And it feels like whatever has happened, this kind of crossroads point, this roadblock, this person disconnecting or kind of just digging their heels in from moving forward with you more deeply, or just some energetic static that may be occurring right now, coming primarily from their end of the situation if you're still dealing with each other. It's something to where they're very drawn to you in the sense that there's the potential to kind of shift how they could be moving through life, how they could be moving through partnerships, and at the same time, it's something to where they don't necessarily know how to operate in this kind of new frequency that you are demonstrating for them through that living example. So they're very much drawn to you, they're very much magnetized to you, but at the same time, it brings up a lot where they're kind of just stuck. You represent a leap of faith beyond the comfort zone. There's a fear of them dissolving who they have been, how they have been moving through the world in the interest of, investing more in this partnership, or getting out of their own way enough to kind of let their light shine so they can kind of match you at that frequency. It's very compelling for them, but at the same time, it's so outside of the box and comfort zone that they don't necessarily know how to maneuver in that way. So they're just kind of holding back and, just are very much sort of stuck at this period of time. They're stuck in terms of what they can do, what they imagine is possible in the future with the two of you. But they're watching you with an energy of kind of intrigue, sort of taking notes, learning from you, and this may or may not kind of represent the prelude for some kind of transformation on their part, something that they choose to just kind of let go from within themselves so that they can dive in more deeply into this situation, enjoy the fullness of kind of what the two of you have the potential to build with one another, what you've had going on with one another in the past, to contribute to that constructively rather than kind of, adding in a lot of dissonance and static into the situation. So I'm going to get some initials. This can be a first, middle, or last name of you or this person, or it can spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. C, P, V, H, R, Q, G, N, I, S, P, J, W, M, O, W, Z, O, F, X, A, and F. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. If you'd like a personal reading, I offer them through my Etsy shop, and there's a link to that in the description box of the video, as well as in the channel section of my page. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, and channel letters. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers, and sun catchers if you're interested in checking any of those out as well. And I've launched a second channel here on YouTube, which is called Lady of the Dawn Tarot. There's a link to that channel in the description box of the video, as well as in the channel section of my page. The format over there consists of readings related to topics other than love and romance. So if you're looking for something a little different from me, that is the place to find it. I thank you for your support there, as well as for your continued support here on this channel. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well. Hi, Group 2. Chose the Auralite 23 point. So I'm just going to be using oracle cards for this reading, and let's start out with the energies of then. And this can apply to, if this is a no contact situation, kind of how they were feeling at that point of disconnect between the two of you when they chose to move away from this connection, or if this is somebody you're currently still in a connection with, you're still talking to, you're still dating, you're still dealing with. Kind of this can look at the initial phases of the connection with you, kind of early on, or some previous chapter in the dynamic between the two of you as that point of comparison. Then I'll get into, after this section, kind of how that has changed or remained the same. So the energies of then, what does that look like? So we have fulfillment, community, openness, lotus flower, unfoldment, ceremony, invocation, and autumnal equinox, release. So there's definitely an energy of a forbidden fruit here with this juicy peach on the fulfillment card. Good enough to eat is the energy coming through here. So definitely somebody who initially when they first met you or when they were last dealing with you, they found you to be very physically attractive, very energetically attractive, very much drawn to you, a lot of personal magnetism, almost this kind of innate quality about you that kind of was drawing them in, almost like a bee to a flower is how they really felt about you. And it feels to be something where as they started to get to know you, there were all these kind of other layers beyond the surface, where it led to this energy of deep transformation as far as you not just being a pretty face, or a handsome face or a very pleasing, package in a physical sense, but that there is this depth to you. There's this energy of almost with this rainbow here in the background that you were like the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, somebody that represented wish fulfillment for them in a lot of ways. Kind of the more they were sort of spending time with you, it was drawn into the sense of I could really see myself being happy with this person. Definitely the first impression, it almost feels like it deepened or transformed in a way to where they sensed a lot of closeness with you, almost like a kinship, a recognition of you as a member of their soul tribe, for example, or a sense of even like a past life soul connection between the two of you, a deep bond on a soul level, that it feels like they became very close to you very quickly in a way that is uncommon for them, or that they didn't anticipate when they first kind of met you. It's almost like the energy of they pegged you as somebody who might have just been kind of fun for a short period of time, or somebody who again was just sort of very appealing from the surface level, but then once they kind of cracked beyond that shell, it almost feels to be something where the emotional depths, the way that you look at the world, the way in which you move with very kind of heart-centered awareness, it blew them away in a very positive manner, to where the nature of your conversations, the things that you talked about, the way in which you might have given advice to this person, they see you as somebody who, or they saw you as somebody, in that initial kind of past energy as having a lot of life experience, a lot of sage wisdom. They may have seen you as somebody very psychic, very intuitive, somebody with an incredible ability to manifest wish fulfillment for yourself. And this could be something where they were seeing this based on your material circumstances, or it's almost something that they could just sense about you vibrationally speaking. It drew them in, and it almost feels that watching you kind of move through the world, they saw a lot of other people, a lot of good luck and a lot of opportunities really, sort of were coming your way. That you're almost kind of somebody who shifts the energy of a room without really meaning to. They also see you as somebody who is very strong, despite the fact that you might be, humble and kind of, quiet about your successes. They see you as somebody who would have had a lot of reason to maybe brag about certain things, but you just move through it with an energy of humility. Somebody who has been, kind of devoting themselves to being of service to others, to helping others move through periods of difficulty, almost kind of like using your own sort of experiences, your own sort of challenges of where you've really had to change and adapt to circumstances, and using that in different ways to kind of help and inspire others. They saw you as somebody who really showed up for people during their hour of need. You're able to really transmute a lot of personal darkness for yourself into the opportunity to, instead of like a void space of emptiness, it's a void of creative potential, and that you really help to shift other people's perspective, to kind of pick themselves up out of the mud and really try to make the most of circumstances. So something where if you were in kind of like a helping or a healing profession, or were working at that, maybe this is something you were in school for something in that capacity, or you were just interested in things like energy work or metaphysics, any of that sort of stuff. It can apply in a broad kind of range of topics, that this is more than just this person saw this as kind of, it brought out or tapped into some innate quality within you as a healer, as a light worker, as a way shower, and that this is something that was very, it almost feels like unexpected, because you didn't come in the package of who they might have thought would be a healing presence. They were very much drawn to you, but then the more they got to know you, it's almost kind of the layers of what you were really fulfilling within them. It went a lot deeper than just kind of elements of the ego, layers of the ego. They also saw you as somebody with this moon here, actually these two full moons in both of these cards, as very mysterious, again, very psychic, very in tune to your intuition, somebody who really, got hunches, got those kind of gut feelings, got that spidey sense, and acted upon these things to where looking at your life or just in their kind of dealings with you, it almost was that they were actually able to sort of witness in some way you kind of shifting your energy and being very kind of conscious of, your own sort of energetic ebbs and flows, or things that you were really seeing and sensing about circumstances, people, maybe people that you had to cut out of your life, or circumstances that you walked away from, purely because of just sort of like a sense or some kind of a pull or a draw in another direction, that this person really witnessed that working out to your advantage. And it feels to be something that's been very educational for them, or it was in the past, to kind of looking at and honoring those kind of nudges within themselves, dreams that they were getting. Even maybe you discussed a lot of that, prophetic dreams, things having to do with kind of astrology, for example. They see you as somebody who is able to kind of navigate through tight spaces or in dark times, simply by kind of instinct, simply by this sort of tapping into your higher self, or some sort of higher timeline, maybe even some long-term goal that you had been wanting to call in, wanting to cultivate. Somebody who plays the long game rather than just kind of leapfrogging through life and kind of jumping from lily pad to lily pad in a very opportunistic fashion. That you're somebody who really sort of sets your eye on the prize and is able to sort of maneuver your way to that, in various kind of ways. That you're somebody who is very innovative. You're somebody who is willing to take risks, but in a place that is almost, it comes from a deep sense of emotional and intuitive knowing. So they didn't see you as somebody very impulsive, but somebody who actually, again, despite whatever your physical package kind of presents as, that you're actually a deeply intuitive, observant person. Somebody who's very willing to release what does not serve your highest good in order to clear space or to align yourself more properly with kind of what you want, with wish fulfillment. They saw you as somebody, very unapologetic and kind of going after what you want. And also this magician energy here as well with the ceremony, somebody who is a master manifester. There was almost a sense as well of you manifesting them, calling them in a certain way. This could have, in a certain extent, been very triggering for them as well, kind of this psychic ability or intuitive knowing, or the sense of watching you manifest other things in real time, that they may have kind of felt to themselves, am I being manipulated? Am I being played here? Am I just this person's puppet on a string? Do I even have free will in this factor? Or am I part of some kind of like bigger plan that they have in place for, different pieces that they are trying to align in their life in order to create, kind of the implementation of a bigger strategy of wish fulfillment. So that feels to be something that almost might have triggered, a wound of kind of their free will being subverted in a way, ways in which they had kind of, surrendered their personal power to helping manifest the dreams of other people at the expense of their own, times in which they had been used by other people romantically, financially. Mind games had been played. This might have been somebody who dealt with narcissists in the past. They were gaslighted. Something where it's almost not that there was any kind of like trickery about you, kind of when you were last dealing with them, or sort of early on. But it almost feels to be something to where they saw you as somebody who was easily able to kind of manipulate energy, manipulate your environment, really sort of adjust and correct yourself or turn circumstances to work in your favor. That there was a sense of almost kind of respect and yet fear of kind of like, if this person wanted to, they could really twist me into a knot. They could really, unravel me. They could tear me apart if I opened. And it almost feels to be something where they may have been a little bit kind of cautious or guarded with their heart, a sense of like, if I dive in deep with this person, there's no going back. Then it kind of is a domino in a huge series of other things that may have to fall out of the way in order to kind of make room for this bigger sort of experience of what could happen emotionally speaking. Ways in which just even kind of being in your presence, they may have recognized their life changing as kind of like the unintended ripple of some aspect of you really being in touch with your own emotions, really being in a sense of flow with kind of bigger universal forces that they couldn't help but kind of be subject to this, be subject to kind of this twisting and turning in a way that might have really kind of contradicted for some people what could have been a very grounded stance at which they look through the world. You helped them to see the world through a different lens and almost kind of provided this person with a wider scope of what's possible in terms of co-creating one's destiny, whether that be in matters of finance, in kind of material things, creature comforts. It also feels to talk about personal alchemy on an emotional level, really kind of aligning and becoming the vibration of that which you are seeking. And to where at a certain extent of observing this, it almost feels that it caused this person to kind of look within and say, what piece am I in this puzzle? How am I a representation of what this individual, of what you, the viewer, have been working up to this point in time to call into your world, to call into your reality? Like, where do I fit into that? Because he saw you as somebody who was very adept at kind of tapping into sort of opportunity and universal forces and energy, and really not being sort of thwarted by things, but flowing, really adapting to those, really kind of aligning and calling in sort of circumstances for your higher good, or they saw you or were dealing with you at a time when, you know, your kind of your narrative arc was on the upward swing, and so it really made them kind of question sort of where they fit in with all of that. There was an energy of wanting to rise with you, but at the same time kind of questioning sort of what's my role in all of this. So let's see how their perception of you and the connection has changed, or if they're still kind of in this energy of being a bit mystified, inspired by you and your manifestation potential, a bit nervous and leery about some kind of like magical or otherworldly quality of you, some element of you just being, you know, highly psychic, highly intuitive, really knowing how to actively co-create based on kind of what you, the desires you have within, energies and resources available to you, kind of universal currents, and sort of dealing with the world around you. You know, are they sitting in still in that energy of a little bit skeptical, a little bit standoffish about that, or have they kind of changed and sort of mellowed out and are going more with the flow? Okay, so we have Unfinished Symphony, Imagine, Orphaned, Searing Presence, Divine Alchemy, and The Untamed. So this is definitely an energy of this person, whether this is somebody you're currently dealing with or somebody you're in a disconnect with and no contact with at this time. They are actively trying to kind of quiet those fears, quiet that skepticism. If they, you know, at one point in time were questioning, am I just a piece in this person's puzzle? Am I sort of a you know, an aspect in a bigger game that they're playing in terms of their life in general? And if they were feeling a bit standoffish or that wasn't a good thing, they definitely have changed a corner, or they've turned a corner. They've changed their attitude about that, and there's a sense of, I want that. I want to get on board with this. I like the benefit of that. I like the idea of that. I like kind of moving in that direction, seeing you as somebody who is, you know, creating positive change. You're not missing a beat. You know, whether, even if you were kind of hurt or disappointed, if this is a situation that has disconnected, it's almost like, you know, you haven't sort of missed your stride. You haven't, it hasn't been something which has interfered with kind of this bigger work of art that you are trying to create out of your life. And that this is something to where that in and of itself has really help them to kind of lean into a place of sort of wondering, what was I so afraid of? All of this kind of untapped potential, this person being so much more than meets the eye. And it almost feels to be a little bit of kind of like a natural sort of guardedness or skepticism at just this otherworldly kind of quality about you. Definitely master manifester in a lot of ways, with the idea of divine alchemy. They're seeing you as in like an earth angel energy, or again like a light worker, that what you're really calling in, what you're creating, what you're building for yourself, this is not something to kind of fit and fill the ego, although it may really in certain aspects tie into kind of meeting things that the ego wants, or creature comforts, building material success and stability for yourself. But they're seeing you as almost kind of driven by a higher purpose, a higher calling, to where the more they are kind of thinking about you, maybe the distance, kind of watching from a distance, imagining, they've moved out of kind of worst case scenarios into the idea of, this could be a very positive thing, moving back in this person's direction and kind of picking up where we left off. Or if it's someone you're currently dealing with who could have just sort of backed off a little bit, kind of gotten a little nervous about kind of what was building, what more they were going to discover about you as they're kind of peeling back these layers beyond that surface level impression. They're now scooting back in, almost kind of like, this is someone who could really teach me to make my dreams a reality, because they are actively in the process of making their dreams a reality. They're seeing you as somebody very, very unapologetic, and yet at the same time very humble. You are you. You are very authentic. You are one of the most authentic people they have ever met. There might have also been something kind of early on where they were wondering, with that energy of the moon and fulfillment, kind of like, is this too good to be true? Nobody could be this kind of like perfect in so many ways. Nobody could fit so seamlessly. Nobody could feel so comfortable with me. I've never resonated so deeply with somebody like this before. You've definitely made an impression upon them. You are seared into their mind and into their heart. It's almost something where they've never experienced anyone like you. They know they will never experience anyone like you again. And so any sort of doubt or where they were really second guessing this, or trying to pick apart the green lights and turn them into red flags, it feels that this person has real time, like now, has really taken the time to sort of turn this situation around within themselves, to where they may be formulating some kind of plan to reach out, to pick up where you left off. If you're still dealing with them, to, open up those lines of communication more, to participate with you more, rather than kind of stalling out and letting things become or remain stagnant. It's almost the idea of, I want to co-create with you. I want to see where this goes. I want to look on the bright side of this situation. I want to imagine all the possibilities and potential, rather than fencing this into the energy of, what if things go wrong? What if this turns out to be too good to be true? What if I'm just, kind of a pawn in this person's larger game of life, and I'm discarded further down the road? That feels to be something as well that is kind of, there is a fear of abandonment. There's a fear of kind of what do they really have to contribute to your life, to the world you're building, to this vibration that you are inside, that they're not necessarily, it feels like they're starting to turn a corner to really recognize that you're in a place in your life, and it feels like you were when you first met them. You definitely are more so now, and especially if this was a no contact situation, you've gone through a glow up, a series of glow ups. You keep shining brighter. You keep getting more and more in alignment with some kind of bigger path or purpose or vision. That it's almost kind of, they are needing to, they weren't really necessarily understanding kind of their role in all of that, but they're really striving to kind of recognize and understand that you're on a path of calling things in, not so much opposites attract or projects or things that you're needing to force into place. You're somebody who's very much in a flow state. So if the two of you are clicking on that deep level, it means that there is a resonance there. It means that there's a sameness there. And so rather than focusing on the differences or the deficit or the lack, it's almost the energy of, they're starting to really see that light and potential within them. That if the two of you have kind of magnetized yourselves to one another, and you've had this harmony between the two of you, then it's overall a positive experience. And that the only kind of lack or hindrance is sort of a questioning within themselves. And so there's a fear of them missing out on this, with the idea of orphaned, like if they don't pick up the pace, or kind of release this doubt, or with the idea of the untamed, if they don't sort of release any kind of preconceived notions about who you are, what this can unfold into. It feels like already it's been so unconventional, or you're such an unconventional person, even just energetically speaking. Even if on the surface there's nothing kind of out of the ordinary or extraordinary about you, energetically you're very different from anybody they've ever met before. And it's a sense of almost knowing deeply within that if they don't see this situation through more to its fullest potential, that this is going to be something they will regret. They will have missed out. They see you as somebody who is going places in your life, or that you're making a very positive impact in lives around you, and it's something that they really want to be a part of. Not just from kind of the fringe benefit aspect, or something where they're looking at you like a mentor or a guru, or somebody that could kind of help them sort of readjust their worldview, although that definitely could tie into an element of kind of what is involved with all of this, why they're very compelled to you, why they're trying to sort of peel themselves out from wherever they've kind of backed into a corner, or have kind of they've been exercising with a degree of kind of caution. They're sensing that almost you could teach them through the budding and blossoming of romance, a different lens by which they could look at themselves, which may be something that they haven't necessarily seen before, that they've overlooked. Seeing themselves through your eyes, through the eyes of love, it almost feels like it helps them to recognize their own light, to kind of release their own limitations, to question and get more into alignment with kind of building or perfecting a life that they are truly excited about, rather than just kind of going through the monotony day by day. So there's definitely the energies of communication here as well, with like 3 of these cards having blue very predominantly. So their feelings now are wanting to open up more, wanting to, discuss more, make future plans with you, or to even provide some kind of, conversation as far as trying to pick up the pieces, trying to come back in from out in the cold. They're not wanting to miss their opportunity with you. They're not wanting to let kind of skepticism sort of keep them at bay, or sort of a doubt, or almost looking at you in this situation from the angle of questioning. They're definitely wanting to course correct that, and really sort of put no limits on this, no limits to what this could be, no limits to the role you could play in their life. Definitely a sense of almost timelessness here as well, with this unfinished symphony. So they still really see you and recognize you as somebody that, they know from somewhere, like a past life connection, a soulmate connection here, that you've intersected with one another again in this lifetime for a reason. And it's definitely the energy of wanting to participate with you more, not fight this connection, so that they're not missing out on kind of that bigger lesson. What a blossoming of this connection, romantically speaking, can provide for the two of you, almost a version of them that can transform, kind of a better version of them that has existed within, but that they've not necessarily had the proper kind of venue to really bring out into the open, or to really demonstrate before. They're feeling that this is the proper circumstance to kind of allow a part of them, more of heart-centered living, truth of kind of dreams that they have, or, aspects of their life that they may have put on hold because nobody really resonated with that. Nobody understood that. Nobody supported that. Nobody really saw them for who they were, but were just kind of accustomed to the mask, or some kind of a conditional kind of presentation that they had been demonstrating. Contrary to that, with you, they feel very seen and very safe to be themselves. And so it's an energy of wanting to almost flock towards you, wanting to move in deeper, wanting to participate with you more, wanting to unleash, feelings that they've had for quite some time, to transform this connection from where it is currently, either to come completely back in from the cold, by way of, some kind of an apology, can we pick up where we left off, or just sort of get things moving again between the two of you. Or if you're still, dating this person, dealing with this person, it's the idea of giving more to this connection, kind of matching your vibration, matching your frequency, definitely intentionally steering this connection in the direction of, let's talk about the heart. Let's talk about romance. Let's dive in deeper with one another than we have. So rather than backing off or jumping ship, they're wanting to get in deeper with you in this situation. So let's get some messages from their higher self and see what does this person want to tell you right now. So I was only going to get 3 cards from each of these message decks, but then an extra card popped out, so a little bonus message. And they say, you are healing my soul, but it is a work in progress. So that is that divine alchemy. You are really helping this person to unlock a different version of themselves, to see life rather than, is the glass half empty or just be content with what they have. You're helping them to see possibilities, potentials, so much more within themselves that they had overlooked or that has been overlooked in connections and partnerships before. This is the energy of, it's a safe space. This is the venue. This is what I was saving the best of me of, is to really pour into this situation. And they also say, you turn loose heaven within me. So a lot of potential as far as what this connection can grow into. You've really helped to resurrect some dreams as far as love and romance this person has had that may not have turned out as they had wanted up to this point. A lot of disappointments, and they could have almost been somebody who was told to get their head out of the clouds and to really just sort of focus on more practical things, more grounded things. And you've kind of swirled into their life very unexpectedly and shaken things up in a beautiful way. You definitely encourage them to dream again, to dream big, to search deeply within their heart and not set any limits on themselves as far as what they're wanting their life to be like. The life they're wanting to construct with another, the relationship with self, all of these different aspects of their life, the internal plane and the exterior reality, instead of just sort of a countdown to, points of completion. It's almost just sort of like, there's an expansiveness. The sky is now the limit, and even kind of beyond that, as far as really a new lease on life, or seeing, not so much focusing on obstacles, but instead looking at kind of potentials in terms of themselves, in terms of their life, and even in terms of love. And they also say, I feel you so strongly, I can taste your essence. So there's that personal magnetism. They are very much drawn to you, wanting to move in deeper, wanting to savor you, savor this connection, savor all that this bond has to offer between the two of you, especially if you're at a distance from one another. You're in a no contact period, you've taken some time apart. There's this yearning, there's this craving to be back in your presence, even to just have very simple conversations, to be in exchanging energy and in the midst with somebody that looks at the world the way you do, that lives life in the way that you do, that kind of approaches matters of the heart, or approaches them energetically or literally in a very particular manner. They're craving that and feeling very much hungry for that, very deficit and void of that. They have not found anything similar. You compare to nobody that they have known before, that they have met since, and it's this yearning and urge to move in closer, to regenerate this connection and to feed into this connection in the same way in which they are being fed by it. They also say, I worship your perfection. So they really look up to you and who you are as a person, how you are living your life, how authentic you are, how fearlessly you stand in the totality of who you are, the magical being that you are, that is actively, seeking to co-create your reality rather than being just kind of this helpless victim of fate. You're really sort of doing what you can to shift your destiny in a very positive direction. They find a lot of inspiration in this. You really help this person to see possibilities that they haven't looked at in quite some time. You help them to really believe that love can actually be something akin to almost like a storybook or a fairy tale, but not just in some whimsical kind of unrealistic way, that this is actually grounded down into reality. They see you as somebody who has made marketable changes, within yourself and within your life. And so you definitely are the type of person that they could build within a capacity that helps to create a very changed narrative of what life can be and what love can be. They also say, can we just kiss all night? So again, they are very attracted to you, wanting to savor you, wanting to kiss and make up. If you find yourselves at a distance from one another in a no contact situation, they're not wanting to be left behind. They're not wanting to remain out in the cold. They yearn for the warmth of your energy and your presence and your light in their life. They also say, I want to be there for you, there to take care of you. So they are not just wanting to be kind of a secondary character in the story of your life. They're really wanting to go through this process of internal and external alchemy so that they can match you at your frequency. This is giving the vibe of like a power couple here. They really see that with you in a lot of ways. Almost the strength of what you can build emotionally in terms of a connection, or even kind of literally these empires you each have the ability to kind of build and combine in your own lives, and in an emotional sense, and like a physical sense and a worldly sense. There are no limits as far as what they see and what they imagine the future with you could be like. It's almost like you've activated this person, or you've motivated them in a way that even if they were really sort of working toward goals, they were grinding, they were hustling, they were just very focused on things that they were wanting to achieve, you've almost kind of amped that up for them. You've shown them a different way of moving through that, rather than just kind of brute force and hard work and competitiveness. There's an element of almost intuitiveness about you. Not that you're not a hard worker, but you know how to kind of sense the shifts in things. You know when to pull back within yourselves when your energies are off. You have this kind of element of self-love and boundaries and recognition of self. Kind of, if you've got off days, you're not gonna push yourself and kind of take it personally if things aren't working out to your advantage. They get a lot of inspiration as far as that's concerned. Ways that they could kind of implement a strategy of almost sort of working smarter toward goals that they have, rather than just like pushing and working harder in the expectation that that will lead to success. And they also say it's easier to stay away now than lose you later. So a sense that they need to do some work within. They need to, it almost feels like acquire or cultivate something, energetically speaking, learn to lean into a space of intuition and trust within themselves, so that they are able to meet you as an adequate match, rather than somebody that is just kind of becomes dependent on you. They are very cognizant of not wanting you to feel like they're just using you, or they're just wanting to kind of get the fringe benefits of your light, or a life that you're building for yourself, or kind of the things that you're able to magnetize in through this vibration within you. They're wanting to come to you on equal footing, on equal ground, so that the two of you can unleash the full potential of this circumstance. So you can alchemize this connection into something very high vibrational, very divine, very fulfilling for one another on multiple levels. And so it feels to be a little sort of internal work at this particular point in time. Not much, but it feels like they've already kind of been doing some things, some soul searching, because for the most part, this energy really speaks of somebody who does not want to be orphaned in this connection. They don't want to be left out in the cold. They don't want to miss out on the opportunity to reconcile. They don't want to kind of stand back and watch and be a little bit uncertain or questioning and sort of risk you just continuing to, unfurl your wings and sort of fly beyond them in this situation. So they're very motivated at this particular point in time to do what is necessary within themselves and within their life in order to match your frequency and continue to kind of rise with you to the higher potentials, vibrationally speaking, and in terms of your interactions with one another. So to get some initials, this can be a first, middle, or last name of you or this person, or it can spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. Okay, we have Y, O, G, N, M, U, A, T, B, Z, J, P, S, A, E, W, P, R, O, I, G, X, and N. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. If you'd like a personal reading, I offer them through my Etsy shop, and there's a link to that in the description box of the video, as well as in the channel section of my page. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, and channel letters. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers, and sun catchers if you're interested in checking any of those out as well. And I've launched a second channel here on YouTube, which is called Lady of the Dawn Tarot. There's a link to that in the description box of the video, as well as in the channel section of my page. And the format over there consists of readings related to topics other than love and romance. So if you're looking for something a little different from me, that is the place to find it. I thank you for your support there, as well as for your continued support here on this channel. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well. Hi, Group 3. Chose the Rhodochrosite heart. So I'm just going to be using oracle cards for this reading, and I will start out with the energies of then, and this can relate to, if this is a no contact situation, how they were feeling when you moved into separation with one another, or if this is somebody that you're currently seeing, currently dating, or in a connection with or connected to. Kind of what were their feelings about you, maybe during the next or the last stage or chapter of your connection, or even early on in the connection, kind of those initial impressions of you and who you are or were. So we have blessings, forgiveness, flexibility, Gaia, nurturing, tsunami, wake-up call, and tree, grounding. So, initially, this person saw you as somebody with a very good head on your shoulders, with the idea of tree and grounding. Family may have been very important to you, or you may have been very focused on building some kind of legacy, working through or breaking through some kind of, chains or bonds that had kind of affected or limited people in your lineage, people in your family or background. Even if they didn't have the specifics of it, they almost felt that you were somebody who was very, almost like a person on a mission. You're very driven in a sense to really create positive change for yourself, to not sort of loop back into stale cycles, but to really learn from experiences, learn from challenges, and grow in a more positive or productive way. They saw you as somebody very optimistic, very confident in standing in your truth, speaking your truth. Almost kind of the idea with this little canary here that words, your words, your delivery, a tone, or the vibration within you packed a powerful punch. Your words had meaning. Almost the kind of thing that when you speak, people really listen, that they hear you deeply within. This person could have also really heard you deeply within, heard you with their soul, heard you with their their heart, rather than just sort of hearing you on an auditory level, that your words went deep and affected something within. These little kind of cherry blossoms here also speak to an awakening as well. So something within the vibration of your voice, your words, your sense of almost even personal empowerment, or the strides in which you were making in your life, or what you were focused on kind of doing or building or cultivating. There's a sense of that activating something very dormant within this person, kind of seeing potential where maybe they had looked at missed opportunities, for example. This could also be like literal spiritual awakening within. They saw that reflected within you. It almost kind of had sort of a pivot onto them as well. The seeds of that you tended within yourself and within your own life, when you and this person intersected with one another, when you were last dealing with one another, or even early on in this connection, dealing with you, talking with you, interacting with you, even on a very kind of like surface or basic level, it really stirred things to come to life within them. Beyond just kind of shifting their perspective on how they've been sort of moving through the world, or looking at the world, it's almost kind of dormant things within them at like a soul level, or like a cellular soul level, really stirred. The sense of dealing with you energetically was really food for thought in an etheric sense for them. In the aftermath of your interactions with one another, there were like these profound ripples, like the tsunami, these huge kind of like waves of momentum. A sense of feeling very energetically tethered to you as well from very early on. Right away, there was a spark of recognition. There was something which kind of activated within. It feels like any kind of periods of time, even if it was where you were only seeing or dealing with this person on an intermittent basis, kind of before, if you're in separation with them now, before kind of the bigger long-term separation, it's almost like they were feeling you at a distance, having a lot of telepathy, having a lot of this empathy with one another on an energetic level, at a soul level, feeling kind of the ebb and flow of your emotions as well, feeling very drawn to you, or almost kind of like they wanted to rush in and nurture you, but recognizing that you are very capable of taking care of yourself. They saw you in a very fierce energy with this tiger here, and it's also bringing forth the word tigress. So whether you resonate as like a masculine energy, a feminine energy, a man, a woman, just whatever, non-binary, just whatever it is you resonate with, they saw you as somebody holding this energy of divine feminine deeply within yourself. It's a very kind of a fearless energy. It was a primal energy. It was a protective energy that you generated within yourself. Very intuitive, a knowing of kind of what serves your highest good and what does not. And they sensed and saw you, maybe saw you in action, saw you in real time as somebody who was not afraid to kind of stand up to a challenge, not afraid to voice your opinion, not afraid to cut things off, or to really fight for things with meaning, and to not fight against the current of what needed to kind of vacate or leave your life, or was really hindering rather than serving your highest good. And so with that is a sense of almost intimidation, a sense here in the early kind of days initially upon meeting you, or this could have even been something that was very triggering and kind of led them to disconnect or back off a bit, that this was something to where they may have almost sensed that they had to tread very carefully or tread lightly with you, because you were very tuned in, very honed in, very protective of that version of you when they came into your life, that it had taken you time and kind of these huge waves of change and momentum for yourself, kind of prior to the two of you crossing paths with one another, that they sensed or witnessed that you were very, very fiercely protective of that, a process of personal growth and transformation. You had learned to love yourself, and you were very nurturing and protective of that version of you, which may have made them feel that they couldn't necessarily be fully open and vulnerable with you, that it almost kind of encouraged them to lean more into a place of mindfulness rather than just kind of, dumping or projecting or kind of leaking energy, just sort of spilling their energy everywhere. It's almost something where you really kind of taught them restraint in a sense, not holding back, but just being very mindful, very cognizant, almost the idea of like thinking before one speaks, but in a deeper sense, energetically speaking. You provided some sort of education for this person early on, or they saw you as someone who could really teach them in that capacity. They saw you as somebody and perceived you as somebody very abundant, somebody who, if the connection were allowed to bloom and to blossom, it's a sense of their heart would be safe with you. They felt very seen, very encouraged by you. Not that you were just sort of placating or that you put yourself secondary, but almost as somebody who was able to kind of give allowances for meeting people at kind of the level that they are at. That you had held very high standards for yourself as far as the company you were keeping, who was in your life, what you were focusing on, what energies you were allowing in. But you didn't approach this in such a black and white way that it was, okay, you're only dealing with people that are at that same vibrational level or that same spiritual level or that same emotional level. It's almost an energy of you were willing to kind of give people the benefit of the doubt, or give this person the benefit of the doubt, as long as they were demonstrating, kind of consistency as far as taking accountability for self, moving through kind of the energies of change, not leaning overly into shadow, but even at times where, this person was feeling kind of down in the dumps almost, that you were very much somebody who could really kind of lift and pick up their mood in a lot of ways, that you understood that kind of everybody's on their own sort of layer and level in their journey, and it's the effort that counts. It's kind of the forward momentum is what really counts. And so this is something to where it really helped to encourage or activate this person to grow in some way, grow beyond their comfort zone, which could have been very kind of scary. The idea of, I don't know where this path is leading. I don't know where these emotions are leading. I don't know what even keeping this person in my life and interacting with them, what this is going to lead to internally within myself or in the dynamic between the two of us. It also feels to be an energy of they saw you as somebody very compassionate, very forgiving, very giving, but not overgiving. And that also might have been something that was kind of a wake-up call, a struggle that this person could have dealt with previously, as being almost like an empath, but with kind of loose personal boundaries, not knowing sort of how to filter out and where other people's energy ended versus one's own energy began. And so this could have been something where prior to meeting you, they found themselves habitually or routinely in these situations of overgiving and completely drained. And so contrary to that, it's almost something to where, and you might have just been sort of starting out or taking kind of the first steps on your journey to establishing better boundaries for yourself, and perhaps even setting boundaries with this individual taught them something as far as how to do that, how to maneuver in that, how to entertain that energy of compassion, but then also really be very kind of mindful to not overgive, to keep enough in reserve so that one's own cup is filled, while at the same point in time being able to effectively exchange with other people. So overall, it's a very positive energy. Definitely they were intimidated by you, though. You changed their life, it feels like, in a very big way for a lot of people. This sparked or stirred some kind of an awakening, and especially if you're still in contact with this person, you're still dealing with them, they are kind of in this ever evolving process of sort of flow and transmutation, trying to keep pace with you, it feels like. And pretty much from like the moment the two of you connected, it's almost like something awakened within, and it's just been kind of like building in steam and building in momentum ever since. So let's see where they are kind of right now, real time. How have these energies changed at all? Are they leaning more into the state of, feeling very intimidated and like they have to walk on eggshells? Or are they actively kind of going through this process of change within themselves and sort of leaning into the space of growing alongside of you in their own kind of individual way? We have to be fair, never-ending story, to the sea, empowered service, sacred pleasure, and rare success. So this person has definitely, currently in real time, they are still on this ever evolving journey with you, and it feels like it's a journey deeply within themselves at this point in time. There's a little bit of fear that they have a lot of work to do in order to kind of continue to sort of rise on their own kind of personal ascension healing journey. And there's a fear of your paths diverging from one another. So there could almost be a sense of them clinging to you energetically if you're at a distance or in no contact, that with that, even if you're still dealing with them, if you're still in contact with them, it feels like they might be clinging a little bit energetically in kind of the times where you're not directly in contact with one another. They're journeying within, but you're almost like an anchor. They're trying to like hold your hand, energetically speaking, while they're going into this uncharted territory within themselves, while they're flowing with this process of evolution, something where they are recognizing that you've activated something within them and that you're further along on this path in terms of your own personal journey. And their experience might look very different than yours, what they're needing to kind of close out and deal with. They're feeling very proactive about that, wanting to bring balance to themselves, wanting to kind of reach a place where, maybe these big shifts don't feel so overwhelming, questions about how they've been living their life and kind of coming into alignment with some greater service to the collective, some kind of mission or purpose here in this lifetime. But it's a feeling of almost kind of like, I don't want to go so deeply within myself that we grow apart. I want us to participate along this path or to develop with one another, but I've been sparked to such deep personal transformation that it's almost like I can't ignore this. I can't not deal with this. It is a key component to what we might, develop into in the future. So it's definitely motivating them to sort of do some changes within, dive into some deep waters that they've been avoiding, emotionally speaking, for themselves, but also with the motivation to, again, really be that kind of compatible match for you, that rare success. There's a sense here of really seeing that the two of you, despite any kind of differences, the more that they're kind of discovering about themselves, the more they're discovering kind of these deep layers of alignment and congruity between the two of you, or congruence between the two of you, and it's kind of the more that they discover themselves, the more that they see the reflection of you. They see you as their counterpart, as their match, as their equal, as their other. They're wanting to really strive to become more of that, or to maintain or to hold that balance, that ever-evolving balance within themselves, because they're not wanting to lose out in this situation. If they're at a distance from you, if they got triggered and recoiled at a certain point in time, maybe due to the idea of feeling very intimidated by you and kind of lack mentality, a shadow aspect, pulling them aside, almost the idea of two people needing to go into separation to sort of do their own personal healing and ascension work. There is an energy here with the to be fair of like the Justice card, wanting to bring some kind of an apology, feeling that restoration is owed in this situation, but also a sense of pressure with the never-ending story, wanting to make sure that they can deliver something of meaning and value to you before it's too late. The sacred pleasure ties into like a Kundalini awakening as well. So there may be kind of a struggle with that as far as this huge, and it's interestingly sitting on top of this tsunami card. So these kind of waves of energy that are very unusual for them, that are very hard to deal with. It can talk about, the activation of various chakra systems within themselves, an activation of a lot of creative potential, to where really they're reimagining their whole world. They're reimagining their whole existence, how they've been moving through the world, their relationship with self. But it's in a very empowered way. Although there's heavy lifting, there's deep diving, there's work they need to do individually within themselves, they feel very linked with you in this capacity. Again, they're like holding your hand, energetically speaking. They're not wanting to let this connection go, not wanting the two of you to drift too far apart. This idea with to the sea, it's reminding me of like two sea otters when they're sleeping and they're holding hands so that they don't break apart, they don't separate. And it's this internal journey right now that it feels like this person understands is very necessary for them. It may be necessary for you. This may be something where, especially in kind of the no contact contact, they're learning to kind of lean into the space of trust with the silence between the two of you, trusting that if they just hold on to this energy, if they just hold on to hope, hold on to the idea, hold on to this creative potential, sending loving thoughts as well, to try and kind of stoke those kundalini fires within you to let you know, I'm still here, I'm not going anywhere, I'm still with you in all of this. There's a hope that the two of you can kind of get through this stage of whatever is necessary as far as like deep dives on an emotional level in order to unearth some kind of treasure within, to come into more of an alignment with sort of your purpose in this life, who you are, each are at a core level, and then what might be created in terms of a relationship, in terms of romance between the two of you, but also it's an understanding that your individual paths, some kind of individual purposes that you each are here for, that this is something that it's almost like a third energy in this connection, in the sense of, or I guess this could apply to like a third and a fourth energy, because you each would have these sort of, things that you are each kind of here to do, and then there's this energy of the unification. So there's this sense here of wanting to kind of multiply the positive experiences that you have with one another, seeing you as somebody that really holds a key to, unlocking potentials within them, a sense of participating with you, and they are recognizing positive changes for themselves. This pink energy is really reminding me of like a heart chakra opening as well. So there's just a lot happening energetically speaking with this person. They're trying to move with this as best as they can, to create balance. It's an energy of not wanting time to run out, wishing they could give or provide more at this particular point in time, or that they could come in from the distance to be able to, give you that apology, give you that explanation. But it's just the sense of kind of a pause is necessary, that there's really two things happening here. It's the internal journey, and then it's the external reality between the two of you. Even if you're participating with one another on a regular basis, you're still dating, you're still talking, you're still interacting, there's a lot going on in the internal landscape to where they're trying their best to kind of straddle both of these planes, both of these polarities, give everything equal time and attention, and a sense of urgency as well, that the internal work needs to continue to happen in order to, they're understanding this, it feels like as well, that if they don't participate in that internal work, it sort of interferes with the harmony that the two of you are able to have in a material sense. They may have witnessed that in terms of disconnect, or times where they were sort of slacking on that. They were too outwardly focused. The idea of holding on to your energy and maybe just kind of sapping that a little bit, sort of leaning on you rather than sort of looking and dealing with the things that they needed to within themselves. And this could have been something that almost wounded the connection. It put things on hold to a certain extent, or sort of created unnecessary limitations. And so they're trying their best to not avoid the places within that they are fearful of avoiding, but then at the same time also, looking at you as sort of worth all of the agony and the discomfort of growing pains, that they're seeing this connection as something that has kind of a limitless growth potential to it. But again, it's also really contingent on work that they are being encouraged to do, and almost not in a literal sense in terms of discussions you might have, but energetically speaking, there have been these bigger mechanisms that have kind of been kicked off, wheels that have been sort of set in motion. And so it's the idea of trying to move with the flow of that as best as possible, and with a lot of kind of positive energy as far as what this can develop into, who they are developing into as a person. On the other side of kind of some heavy lifting, some releasing of things, going with the flow of these very kind of confusing, big energies, a lot happening in the chakras, a lot happening energetically speaking, and a little bit of seasickness with this, but trying to kind of move as well as they can with that. So let's see what they want you to know from their higher self right now. Okay, and they say, I have had sleepless nights caught between confusion and pain. So that's that confirmation right there of somebody who's going through some ascension symptoms, definitely growing pains, energetically speaking, that may be manifesting physically, emotionally, existentially. They're trying their hardest to sort of keep up with you, keep pace with you if you're still dealing with one another very directly, trying not to really, and they may have discussed with you to a certain extent things that are happening vibrationally speaking, but it feels like a lot of that they keep behind closed doors. They're not wanting to burden you or make you sort of look at them as somebody, that might not be on your level. They're understanding that you're very compassionate to, maybe where they're at or a process that's going on, but it's almost a sense of, I got to go down this road on my own. I don't want you to kind of be the crutch that I'm leaning on. I know I need to grow and evolve in order for us to be able to grow and evolve. And a lot of what's really been sparked and awakened, it's almost a bit of, not like a full dark night of the soul, but it's a lot that may be happening in terms of sensation, especially as they're getting up to like the third eye chakra, a lot coming online, and the crown chakra, a lot coming online as far as downloads, visions, dreams, things of that nature. Even the idea of sensing you energetically speaking from very early on in the connection, and even with this kind of sacred pleasure, that hasn't gone away. It's only intensified the nature of that bond. Even if you find yourselves in separation, or for a long period of time you've been separated, time has not diminished that. It's in fact only intensified that, and it feels like it corresponds with your personal process of healing, growth, and transformation. This person feels all of that. You're sharing a lot of energies back and forth, and they feel to be in a state of trying to take personal responsibility for really doing their work, managing their side of this equation, rather than having you just be the fixer or the person that is kind of everything's dumped upon. They may have done that over a period of time or early on, for example, but they're starting to really kind of pull back and claim what is theirs, deal with what they need to deal with on their part. They also say, you are my treasure. So with that idea of rare success, this is definitely worth the work that it will take in order to move back towards you, in order to help to participate with this connection, carry it forth to the next level. As painful and scary as this journey may be, as out of the ordinary as this connection is, or what's happening vibrationally or energetically within them, almost from very early on when you met to current real time today kind of energy, this is something that they're almost in the process of being sort of whittled down from the version of them that they were before they met you. And they're seeing a lot of perfection within themselves where it was just raw potential before. They're being forged and fashioned almost into a better version of self, and they really credit that to intersecting with you. Even if they don't fully understand the nature of what's going on, what that means, they do understand very consciously that since meeting you, there's been the opportunity for them to change their life, and or their life has changed profoundly for the better. With that has come a lot of very intense, very heavy energies, very scary energies, as far as, all these activations, all these things coming on, all of this energy exchange back and forth, but it's worth it. It's almost like this is the greatest treasure that they have found in their life, and they weren't even looking for it. They weren't expecting this, all of this intensity, all of this awakening. And it's kind of the energy again of a little bit of seasickness as well, sort of back and forth here. Not really sure what all this means, what to do with all of this, what's happening, but the overall sense here is that they're enjoying the ride at this point. And they also say, you are worth fighting for. So this can tie into fighting doubts within themselves, fighting fears, fighting an urge to run away from this connection. That especially applies if you're still dealing with this person. They may be at a point right now where they're heavily triggered. They're very overwhelmed by the energetic connection between the two of you, not necessarily able to fully compartmentalize or separate kind of your energy from theirs. So the two of you sharing a lot of, and you might be picking up on that as well, a lot of their anxiety, their fears, because they're trying to kind of take what's theirs, keep what's theirs, and not put too much on you, but it's still sort of a work in progress for them. They're fighting the urge to not sort of lean upon you or call upon you to nurture and fix everything. They want to kind of come to that place where they're able to be that rock for you as well, where you're able to really hold on to them in your times of, kind of upheaval and change. But it's also a sense here, if this is, somebody that you're at a distance from, in a no contact situation. They're fighting kind of time, they're fighting the clock, they're wanting to fight their way back to you, to make amends, to course correct in the situation, fighting this kind of voice within them that says it's too little too late, this connection is too overwhelming, it's too outside of the box, just better left in the past. They're wanting to resurface and resuscitate the connection. And they also say you are always so sweet. So again, they see you as somebody very nurturing, even in the tough love energy where you've set boundaries with them or with other people. They see you as somebody who moves through in a very compassionate energy. Even when you're having to release things, you're having to tell people no, you're having to, pull your energy back and set up time for you, fill your own cup. You do it in a way that, it's not aggressive. It's almost a demonstration of power through gentleness that has been very informative for this person, a new way of them looking at themselves and dealing with others. They also say there is a strange and deep connection between us. So there's that confirmation of that energetic bond between the two of you. A lot exchanged, even when you are at a distance. If you're in no contact, those energies have, maybe at times kind of quieted down a little bit. There's been some radio silence, but it definitely feels that there have been periods of sort of quiet, only to have things resurge, pop back up as if, no time has passed, not skipping a beat. There it is again. There's this person again. There you are again. If it's something where you're still dealing with one another, you're still in connection with one another, they're highly focused on that at this particular point in time. They're not ignoring the signs and synchronicities. They're not ignoring the telepathy. They're not ignoring the dreams. They're not ignoring feeling you around them. They're scratching beneath the surface. They may be on kind of that path, that journey of sort of the spiritual aspects of things, looking into twin flames, looking into soulmates, soul connections, energy, chakra, all of that, really expanding their mind, expanding their territory, past lives even, and trying to figure out kind of, what is this that we have with one another? How to define this? What does this mean? It defies everything that they've been able to kind of find and discover, and certainly what they've ever experienced or felt with anyone before. And they also say, so we meet again, my dear friend, through space and across time. So confirmation there of a deep past life soul connection between you and this person that they are very consciously aware of. They are yearning to kind of find some answers within themselves in order to be able to have more open discussions about this with you, or at least to be able to reconcile kind of a sense of there's something out of the ordinary about this. There's something about this, energetically speaking and experientially, which defies what I have known of love and partnerships before, defies what I have known in terms of connections with another person before. A lot of things from kind of like the deeply embedded shadow that it feels like they're trying to work on at this point in time in order to create balance within themselves, so that they can meet you. They can meet the tigress energy at like this tiger energy, wanting to bring forth this balance, masculine and feminine, divine masculine and divine feminine energy, so that the two of you can proceed forward either into a reconciliation or continuing to develop this connection into something that has a lot of potential for long-term success and stability for the two of you. So I'm going to get some initials. This can be a first, middle, or last name of you or this person, or it can spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. Got F, F, V, M, M, L, N, W, E, Y, E, D, A, T, A, N, G, R, X, P, C, and Z. So, those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. If you'd like a personal reading, I offer them through my Etsy shop, and there's a link to that in the description box of the video as well as in the channel section of my page. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, and channeled letters. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers, and sun catchers if you're interested in checking any of those out as well. And I've launched a second channel here on YouTube, which is called Lady of the Dawn Tarot. There's a link to that in the description box of the video as well as in the channel section of my page. The format over there consists of readings related to topics other than love and romance. So if you're looking for something a little different from me, that is the place to find it. I thank you for your support there as well as for your continued support here on this channel. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well.